Donald Trump's disastrous budget bill that is wildly unpopular is hitting some roadblocks in Congress. We'll talk about the fight between the Senate and the House, the status of this. It's a moving target, so things could be changing rapidly, but we'll break down everything we know right now. Donald Trump failing to secure trade deals basically with any country. He said that he's going to give a phone call to Mr. Japan because he doesn't know the prime minister of Japan is Prime Minister Ishiba. And I'm going to send Mr. Japan, he says, a letter saying, here is what your deal is. That's not a deal. I don't even know what that is, but that's what Donald Trump's saying about our ally in Japan, which engages in a huge amount of business here in the United States. We're getting more intel as well about the strikes by the United States on Iran. Satellite footage shows that Iran is rebuilding the Fordow facility. We see excavation at the ventilation shafts in Fordow. Also, our intelligence community intercepted communications from Iranian officials saying that they were shocked that the strikes did not do what they expected it to do in terms of damage, and our intelligence and European intelligence, and really what the senators and Congress members who left an intelligence briefing, which wasn't all that intelligent, said is that the 800, 900 pounds of uranium were moved out and Iran can have nuclear weapons, in several months again, if it really wanted to restart that. But, Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump are apparently celebrating. Netanyahu's coming to the United States after Donald Trump extorted Israel and said that if the courts continue to prosecute Netanyahu in Israel, Donald Trump would stop providing weapons to Israel. Then there was a pause of Netanyahu's criminal case in Israel, and Donald Trump committed to providing additional military weapons to Israel. I'm glad that's his focus. I'm being sarcastic, of course. While Americans can't afford homes, while prices on goods are more expensive, and as a disastrous budget bill threatens to kick 15 million Americans off of their health care plan. Also, Donald Trump will be visiting on Tuesday something that they're calling Alligator Alcatraz. It's a concentration camp in the Everglades in Florida, where if you move beyond a certain point, you will get eaten by alligators, and migrants will be mauled and killed and eaten by alligators. And they're making a big celebration of this. I think this costs hundreds of millions of dollars to build. That's where taxpayer money is going. And if this disastrous budget bill ends up getting passed, and not just the Senate, but then the House is probably going to have to do some work on it, and it'll get back. It's billionaires, Alligator Alcatraz, while Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, while Americans get screwed. Let's bring in Brett and Jordy. We've got a lot to discuss here on the show, but with an intro like that, it's going to be quite a show.
Yeah, we certainly have a lot to talk about. I mean, let's go through some of the things that you just said, right? Trump lying, the country in chaos, our rights, our benefits under attack, our foreign policy in shambles. We're being humiliated on the global stage. So just another day in Trump's America, folks, as always. And as we look at this budget bill that the GOP right now is really in shambles over, I mean, they know, trust me, they know this is a bad bill. And they are doing this to appease one person, Donald Trump, while they screw over their own constituents. It is the most cynical thing that I have seen yet in a long list of cynical moves that I've seen from this party. The party that for the past few years, I mean, I could go back decades and decades, but let's just stick to the past few years, with Biden, beat this drum of we're fiscally conservative. We actually care about spending. We need to rein it in. We need to rein in that spending. I mean, this is a debt bomb, a deficit bomb. This bill is so outrageous. And speaking of President Biden, he was somebody who always said, don't tell me your values, show me your budget, and I'll tell you your values. I think of that phrase a lot right now because this budget truly tells you what this Republican Party and what Donald Trump value. And it's clearly the billionaires, the oligarchs, and you know what they don't value? The people. They are screwing the people. They are screwing the people when it comes to healthcare. They are screwing the people when it comes to energy, when it comes to our debt and our deficit, when it comes to all things that would benefit 99% of the people. They are absolutely screwing them just so they could give handouts to millionaires and billionaires. It is the most insane bill, just objectively speaking. It's absolutely horrific. I try not to be like super alarmist about things because I want to judge everything on its merits. But this bill truly is like an evil person wrote it, and I guess we know why that's the case. But anyway, Jordy, if our audio listeners are listening to this, that means it is Jordy's B-Day. Jordy's B-Day, July 1. Happy birthday, Jordy.
Thank you.
I'll turn it over to you. What's going on, man?
What's going on? Even bigger than that, Brett, if you're listening on audio, that means it's Canada Day. So happy Canada Day to all the Maple Midas out there. Let's go. And thank you for listening on audio. Thank you for watching live. If you haven't yet, please subscribe both ways. YouTube listeners, subscribe on audio. Audio listeners, subscribe on YouTube. It's awesome. You know what, Brett, you covered a lot. Benji, you covered a lot. Benji, let's just kick it back to you. Where do you want to start today's show?
Look, Donald Trump's North Star, or I guess you can say whatever the opposite of is, as it goes to hell, if I'm thinking about Greek and Roman,
the Death Star, I don't know,
Greek and Roman mythology, is first off, let me do whatever I can to help the billionaire oligarchs, help myself. And then also it's just based on, he doesn't like windmills because there were windmills that were built near, one of his properties in Scotland. And then he said in Aberdeen, and he was like, well, I don't like windmills anymore. So I don't like windmills, right? And then he says, I don't like solar energy because I don't like the way it looks in the mountains. I don't like the way it looks. And on that basis, and he goes, we're going to call this big, beautiful bill BBB. And then it's just like seeing, Brett, to your point, these MAGA Republican, senators and Congress members like go along with something that just objectively is going to kill their constituents. It's a wild thing to even have to observe. So we'll get into that. We'll get into how Elon Musk has also been speaking out against this. And he says that he's going to use all of his money, he says, to make sure that anybody who votes for this gets primaried. He says it's the worst bill he's ever seen. It's a betrayal. It's going to increase our debt by trillions of dollars a year. And, look, he's Elon Musk on this point is right. It will cause us to go into trillions and trillions of dollars more on debt. And on a part that matters more to me than Elon Musk, it's going to kick 15 to 16 million Americans off of Medicaid. So we'll go and speak all about that. But why don't we start off, though, just by talking about some news we heard early this afternoon, which is Donald Trump caving. And we'll see this theme, the Trump taco, Trump always chickens out, when it comes to his lawsuit against the Des Moines Register and Ann Selzer. Donald Trump sued the Des Moines Register in Iowa, and Ann Selzer, who worked, no longer works there, for the Des Moines Register as a pollster over there, and he sued Gannett. One of the interesting things, too, is that by and large, Gannett provided Donald Trump with some favorable coverage. Like even when it came to Iran, Gannett was the one that ran across all their local papers, obliterated before we even knew what the actual outcome was. But Donald Trump sued them, and then Donald Trump dismissed the lawsuit earlier this afternoon without prejudice, which means he could still rebring the case if he wants to. But this is the exact same thing he did in the lawsuit against MeidasTouch host Michael Cohen. Remember when he sued Michael Cohen a few years back and Cohen asked for his deposition? Then Donald Trump said, no, I don't want to sit for a deposition. And the judge said, you sued him, Donald. I mean, you got to sit for a deposition. Then Trump tried to delay. It's the exact same things we see now when he's in office. He tried to squirm out of it. And then ultimately he dismissed the lawsuit without prejudice against Cohen as well. This is Donald Trump's MO. If you stand up to him, he's a bully that huffs and puffs and says he's going to blow your house down. But at his core, he's actually a weak and pathetic individual. I mean, look, he's a criminal. He's a sexual abuser. He's a felon. He's a bankrupter. He's a lifelong loser. He's someone who dodged the draft 5 times and then tries to steal people's valor by surrounding himself with military people who he thinks acts tough. But he isn't tough. He isn't. And anytime you confront him directly, just like we see here with Ann Selzer and the Des Moines Register or Cohen or whoever stands up to him, he backs down. So I think that's an important lesson to talk about at the outset of these things, especially as we talk about Donald Trump's failed trade negotiations. Donald Trump has there's no core policy, there's no principles, there's no values. He just wants the counterpart in a negotiation to bend the knee and submit. He wants to use a negotiation to huff and puff and blow the house down and have a loser in a negotiation. And then he wants to taunt and humiliate the counterparty in a negotiation. That's just not the way negotiations work. Usually in negotiations, parties try to find win-win. There's a give and a take, a push and a pull, and people try to find a deal that works for both parties. Sometimes you win here, you lose there, but the parties try to maintain and save their face in negotiations. No one wants to be bullied into submission. If you do that, you're not going to have good deals. And Donald Trump removed the deals that he had. He had deals with Mexico and Canada. He did it. He did the deal, in his first term, which was basically a plagiarized version of NAFTA, but Trump wanted to rebrand it and update it a little bit from the mid-1990s to 2017, 2018. He called it the USMCA, but he breached that deal, destroyed that deal. And then with Japan, he had a Japan trade deal, and he revoked the deal that exists. And then he goes and talks about, in Japan, they throw bowling balls on American cars and they destroy the cars, and then they don't buy them because the bowling ball tested in Japan. They're like, what the hell are you talking about? The bowling ball test. And then he's like, you need our rice. You have to eat our rice, Japan. Stop not wanting our rice. And they're like, dude, what the hell are you even talking about? How do we deal with you? And then Trump will say, we need you to spend 3.5% of your GDP in defense spending. Actually, make it 5%. Did you know this, Brett and Jordy and Midas Mighty, that at the NATO summit, Japan and Australia were no-shows? They did not show because they didn't want to be around Donald Trump because they were worried he was going to try to extort them to raise their defense spending to levels that they are not agreeable to when they want to honor what their prior commitments were. And so just think about it. Even though they're not NATO members, for them not to show up, Japan canceled, by the way, a meeting with Donald Trump that was supposed to take place this week in Washington, D.C. Prime Minister Modi of India canceled his meeting with Trump 2 weeks ago in person. They don't want to be, it's an odd thing. And it's because Trump wants to humiliate these countries. We'll talk about in a little bit what he just did to Canada as well. You have Prime Minister Carney, who's trying to figure out, a deal, with the United States, preserving Canadian interests. And we'll talk about in a little bit what happened where, Prime Minister Carney's like, look, even though we did this Digital Services Tax Act in 2024, which Trump apparently just discovered like last week for the first time, and Trump used that to pull out of the conversation. It's not that huge of a tax. It's like if a company earns more than $750 million a year, and they use like Canadian influencers or like Canadian products in American digital production, you owe Canada a tax of 3% if you use like Canadian personalities and Canadian stuff. But you have to have a threshold of $750 million revenue. So it doesn't affect a lot of companies. It's not a huge source of revenue for Canada. But Carney's like, okay, I will press pause on this, even though it's been around since 2024. And by the way, we want to have comprehensive discussions. And then Caroline Leavitt and Trump start mocking Canada for doing that. They're like, Canada caved. Canada's the worst. 51st state. And I'll show you clips of that in a second. But how do you negotiate with someone who treats you like that, Brett and Jordy?
Yeah, I mean, the lesson is like never bend to Donald Trump because A, they'll do this whole victory lap thing, in general, and B, he always backs down at the end if you stay strong. And I'm going back to this Ann Seltzer thing, Trump dropping this lawsuit, which was honestly just the most absurd lawsuit imaginable, obviously strictly designed to chill free speech. It was an attack on Ann Seltzer. To remind you, remember, she had that poll prior to the 2024 election that showed Kamala Harris ahead of Donald Trump in Iowa. That poll did not end up matching what actually happened in the election. The election happens. Donald Trump then decides to sue Ann Seltzer, decides to sue the Des Moines Register over this poll because he wasn't shown winning in the poll. And so Ann Seltzer's lawyers were like, yeah, this is, blatantly unconstitutional and we're going to fight this. Note what she did not do. They did not pay $15 million to the Donald J. Trump presidential library. They did not do all of those moves. They fought it. Donald Trump ultimately got to a point where he had to drop the case. That's what everybody should do. And frankly, this case, and when I said this is an absurd case, it is an absurd case. It's no more absurd than the lawsuits that Trump has filed against ABC. It's no more absurd than the lawsuits Donald Trump has filed against CBS and Paramount and all these things that he's doing. Yet those organizations, ABC gave Donald Trump, what, $15 million, I believe. CBS and Paramount, they're right now in these negotiations with Trump. The mediators are suggesting maybe you should just pay him $20 million. We want to get this deal through, this merger deal through. So just give him $20 million so that Shari Redstone could get her billions when this deal goes through and everyone will be happy. It's frankly a disgrace. And these organizations, when you bend the knee also as a media entity, if you're CBS or if you're ABC, what you're doing is you're declaring an open season on the free press. You're declaring an open season on MeidasTouch, all the legacy networks. You are saying, yeah, come after us, okay? Because we gave you money. Certainly there'll be some other people who gave you money. I'll tell you right now, we will never back down to the Trump regime. If they come at us, when they come at us, they've come at us in the past. We won't do that. Like it's not beneficial for anybody. And it's just a disgrace when I see people, but props to Ann Seltzer for holding her ground. And it's good to see that, that she won this one, as ridiculous as it was, as much money it probably cost her. Hopefully she could get, legal fees or whatever out of this. But the whole thing is just absolutely insane to me.
No, absolutely. And notice the common theme that we see here. Who is it that keeps defeating Trump and not bending the knee? It's all these courageous women. Ann Seltzer, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. I mean, it's time after time, the folks that are putting out their chest and not bending over to appease Donald Trump. And you look what we're doing here. Donald Trump's an idiot, man. I mean, there's just no way to put it. To Ben's point exactly, the guy's not looking to actually negotiate these things. If he doesn't take everything, then he just acts like a child, like worse than a child. Throws a temper tantrum, tweets the mean things or posts the mean things on a social platform, and makes us by proxy look like we're the dumbest country on the earth. Honestly, every time he does one of these children tantrum posts, I just put my hand literally on my face. I shake my head. I'm just like, this is where we are as a society. This is where we are as a country, that this lunatic has the nuclear codes. He's our president. And I just hate that concept of such a childish behavior from an office that's supposed to be just so respected, Ben.
Take a look at what he said in the past 48 hours. He doesn't know that Japan's prime minister is Prime Minister Ishiba. He calls him Mr. Japan, right? The same way he called Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, Tim Apple or Mr. Apple. He doesn't take his time to even understand any of the dynamics of who's leading the countries, what's happening in these countries, how significant is Japan a trading partner of the United States? I mean, Japan employs more Americans than any country. What are we doing here? Take a look at what Donald Trump said. He called Prime Minister Ishiba Mr. Japan and says that he's just going to send a letter to Mr. Japan saying, here's the deal, because you weren't able to negotiate with us because we're not clear about what our negotiating stance even is. We're going to give you what the deal is. Here, play this clip.
And then I help China. So by reducing it.
We still don't know. We don't have the clarity on what you're going to do with these expiration of these pauses. July 9th.
No, I thought I just said it. No, I thought I just said it. You ready?
You're going to send letters.
I'm going to send letters. That's the end of the trade deal. I could send one to Japan. Dear Mr. Japan, here's the story. You're going to pay a 25% tariff on your cars, So we give Japan no cars. They won't take our cars, right?
So he praises China and says it was a great deal for China that he removed the 145% tax on Americans and made it 55%. And his view about trade deals with other countries is he's just going to send a letter. And let's just not ignore that. He looks like a legitimate crazy person. How he talks about Hannibal Lecter? It's all projection. I mean, he looks like he's from an asylum right there. What do we, I'm going to tell him, I'm going to send him a letter. I'm going to send a letter. And I'm going to say, here's your deal. So that's his view about trade. What about Donald Trump's views on interest rates? So he spent the whole day attacking, which is what else is new, the chairman of our Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, who Donald Trump appointed in 2017, 2018. This is just the guy's Trump's appointee. Jerome Powell. So Trump then sent Jerome Powell a list of countries that have a lower interest rate than the United States. And Trump's like, we should be like these countries, Jerome. Listen to the countries that Donald Trump wishes the United States was more like and that he's envious of. Here, play this clip as Caroline Levitt holds up Donald Trump's printout of a list of countries that he sent to Jerome Powell and posted on social media. Play the clip.
So the president sent this note to the Fed chair today. And if you look at this chart, this is a chart of all of the interest rates of many countries throughout the world. At the top is Switzerland. They're only paying a quarter for interest rates. Cambodia, Japan, Denmark, Thailand, Botswana, Barbados, Taiwan, Bulgaria, Cuba, Sweden, Morocco, Cabo Verde, South Korea, Algeria, Canada, Albania, Libya, Malaysia, China, New Zealand, Trinidad and Tobago, Czechia, Bolivia, Australia, Costa Rica, the Bahamas, Kuwait, Papua New Guinea.
I mean, what the hell are she even doing? Like, what the hell is that? And for our audio listener, she has this list that Donald Trump posted on social media that she's holding. And Donald Trump drafted a note where he calls the chairman of the Federal Reserve too late and like attacks him and defames him and says, you've cost us all these damages. Like it's actual crazy behavior, Brent.
And Ben has said this before on the show, but you know what he's doing here is he's making Jerome Powell a scapegoat. He's making Jerome Powell the Fauci of this administration. Any issues with the economy, they're not Donald Trump's fault. They're Jerome Powell's fault. And the, of course, irony with this whole thing is that the reason why Jerome Powell is being so cautious and is not lowering the rates, because remember, the rates were predicted to come down a lot sooner. The rates started to come down prior to the election. Why? Because the economy had stabilized and we had things under control. What's the reason why he is not doing these things right now? Because of Donald Trump's tariffs and his erratic behavior on the economy. If there was a stable hand, if there weren't these erratic tariff decisions, then I bet Powell would be a lot more inclined to do these cuts. And Powell, by the way, has already said that he plans on doing some of these cuts later in the year, but he's got to see where the economy falls. We already saw CPI, core inflation, spiking last month, even though Donald Trump and Stephen Miller go out there and they go, we did it, it's solved, no more inflation, doesn't exist, no more. No, it does. It's actually getting worse is the issue. And you lower interest rates, you know what happens? That inflation could spike. I mean, this is all kind of how we got to this inflationary period in the first place. If you remember, there were supply chain shortages under Donald Trump. And I'm not saying it was all his fault. I'll be fair here. There was a global pandemic that occurred, but Trump's refusal to confront the pandemic for what it was and the actions that he took certainly made it worse. And those issues from the pandemic and the efforts that Donald Trump took at the end to try to, as he gave away money like candy to all these businesses and did everything he did, it made the economy red hot in a way that spiked all the costs of everybody. And that's why you see a spike the second Donald Trump left office. That inflation stemmed from Donald Trump's actions while in office. Trump is now kind of trying to lay the same traps. Trump is trying to get out there. He wants these interest rates to go low. He circled on that image in his, Sharpie, the way he does on those maps. He circled like, this is where our interest rate should be. And I forget exactly where it is on that map, but it's like, 1%, 1.25%, which it's currently like 4.25 to 4.5%. But if we did that, it would literally destroy the economy. It would cause runaway inflation. I mean, it would look like, I don't know, it would look like the Great Depression in this country if we just did that. But he has no understanding of economics, and he wants these short-term hits rather than actually being concerned about the long-term health of the economy. It's all Trump's fault. That's the point I want to be clear. We could have had lower rates, but for Donald Trump.
Absolutely. And real quick, Ben, right before we hit break, I just want to say this. Trump, he just wants his fingerprints on anything, on everything that has to do with his current presidency. And it's damn upsetting because I just so miss the steady hand on the wheel. That's it. That's all I want. Had the guy come into office and just like played golf every single day, which by the way is also doing now, but didn't touch anything and just let the Biden economy continue onward and everything that Biden's policy, just let those go. I wouldn't even be talking about the guy. I wouldn't. But the fact is, he's coming in and just wreaking chaos against the economy, against against society as a whole. And it's just so frustrating to see.
So I want to talk about the disastrous budget bill when we get back. I want to show you what Elon Musk is saying, what Tom Tillis, a MAGA Republican senator from North Carolina, who, after voting no on the disastrous budget bill to move it forward, Trump attacked Tom Tillis, and Tillis said, "You know what? I'm done. I'm not going to seek re-election." He was up for re-election in the next election in 2026. So this could be a seat that Democrats pick up as well. But I'll show you in their own words, what they're saying about it, what Rand Paul, a MAGA Republican senator from Kentucky, is saying about it. And the reality is that this is going to add trillions and trillions of dollars to our debt. But Trump is running the country the way he ran companies into the ground. Fraudy, scammy. It's like the meme coin. It trades above where it should, but the people are the ones who are suffering right now. And the people are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Weren't we supposed to make things more affordable, and housing was supposed to be more affordable? Weren't you supposed to look after us? What are all of these things that you're doing? I mean, it seems that you're attacking us. And I think that's becoming increasingly clear. We'll talk about that and more. I want to take our first break of the show. I want to remind everybody, we're really trying to grow our memberships here on our YouTube. We don't have outside investors on the MeidasTouch network, so we've been able to grow through ways like these YouTube memberships. We have exclusive features like the Ask the Editor-in-Chief series that I do with Ron Filipkowski. You can access the emojis. Also, you can gift unlimited memberships to as many people as you want. If you're like, hey, I really want to support the MeidasTouch network by doing memberships, and then you can give everybody in the chat a gift. I mean, it's obviously, you could do one gift, you can do 10 gifts, you can do 1,000 gifts, however many gifts you want to do, and spread the love of memberships. And it helps grow this network. All right, let's take our first quick break of the show. We will be right back after this quick break.
As someone in my 30s, I'm taking steps to ensure that I keep living my best life. That's why I'm so happy I found Timeline's first ever longevity gummies. Timeline's first ever longevity gummies, powered by MitoPure, is a delicious, easy way to put more energy into your day and treat yourself. Look, our body makes less energy as we get older, but now you can help recharge the batteries. Timeline's longevity gummies are the only clinically proven urolithin A gummy for strength, endurance, and healthy aging from the inside out. We're living longer than ever, but are we living better? Truly ask yourself. What if the key to not just adding years to your life, but life to your years starts at the cellular level? Timeline targets a key hallmark of aging. It gives you the energy to feel like yourself again and delivers 6 times more urolithin A than a glass of pomegranate juice. And it increases muscle strength by up to 12% after 16 weeks. These longevity gummies fit perfectly into my routine, and I actually enjoy taking them. If you want to stay strong and energized now and as you age, then you have to try MitoPure gummies. My friends at Timeline are offering my listeners a free 3-day trial of MitoPure gummies. Head to timeline.com/MeidasGummies to claim your free 3-day trial. That's timeline.com/MeidasGummies. Your cells will thank you.
Struggling to stay focused? I suffer from staring at screens all day? Then listen up, because the Remarkable Paper Pro might just be the productivity upgrade you've been waiting for. So what's a paper tablet? It's everything you love about paper, the feel, the freedom, the focus, but supercharged with digital features. The all-new Remarkable Paper Pro is their 3rd generation paper tablet. It's thin, sleek, and feels just like writing on real paper, but it also converts handwriting into text, includes a built-in reading light, productivity templates, and more. Here's my Remarkable Pro. It's honestly made note-taking fun for me. I mean, look at that. How cool is that right there? And as someone who's not the most organized, it's great knowing that all my notes are saved and I could always access them easily. And here's the best part. No social media, no inbox, no distractions, just pure focus. Whether I'm in meetings or brainstorming ideas, this device keeps me in the zone, and it's made from premium materials with a gorgeous 11.8-inch display and a 2-week battery life. Try it risk-free for 100 days. If it's not a game changer, you get your money back. Get your paper tablet at remarkable.com today. That's remarkable.com.
Let's go. Shout out to our pro-democracy sponsors. Links in description of the YouTube and the audio. Use the links, use the codes. If there's an exit survey, please let them know we sent you. And just a quick reminder before we toss it back to Benji, store.MeidasTouch.com. We're having our Canada Day sale. So go check that out. 15% off. All you have to do is add any Canadian product like this one right here, this Maple Midas one, right to your cart. Or Canada is not for sale. Add either of those to your cart. Unlock the 15% off your entire order. I talked to Ben over the weekend. He was cool with the discount. Sorry, Benji, but we got to let it happen. Benji, where to next?
Donald Trump was again using 51st state rhetoric against Canada over the weekend. And then I'll show you what Caroline Levitt had to say about Canada as well after Canada agreed to temporarily pause a digital services tax act in order to try to build a broader deal with the United States that would likely include some form of reciprocal digital services tax act. That's why Carney temporarily pressed pause. Like, this was not some big, massive issue. It was passed in 2024. Donald Trump just learned about it. It's also not to say that it's obscure, but in the swing of things between the relationship, like whether it's like rare earth minerals, oil, lumber, the idea of like the Canadian influencers and Canadian, digital people being in America, it's just not like up there to me in terms of your trading priorities. But I could see how potentially this could impact, U.S. companies. I get it a little bit, I guess. But this had been around since 2024. So Donald Trump heard about it, and he's like, well, that's why we got to conquer Canada. It's got to be the 51st state. Here's what he says.
Senate, they have to pay 200, 300, 400%. People don't know that. Canada is a very tough country to deal with. I will say that.
But
and I love Canada.
you have the USMCA in place.
I know, but
You'll have to do it.
But USMCA is no good if they cheat.
What does that mean?
Well, there's been things going on that we don't like, and things going on where they took advantage. And hopefully we'll be fine with Canada. I love Canada. Frankly, Canada should be the 51st state. Okay, it really should, because Canada relies entirely on the United States. We don't rely on Canada.
I mean, again, it's like a crazy person right there. Now, let me show you what Caroline Levitt said during her press conference today about Canada, saying, oh, they totally caved. They caved. Like, why would you, in a very delicate negotiation, use the goodwill of Canada on something that they didn't have to do to rub it in their faces and have them engage in a humiliation ritual? And it's, again, why nobody wants to do deals with the United States. Here, play this clip.
First, what's the president's reaction to this? Can you tell us more about his call with Prime Minister Carney over the weekend? How did he get Carney to drop it? And also, what's the impact on American tech companies given this latest progress, as the president says he has been fighting for American tech companies?
It's very simple. Prime Minister Carney in Canada caved to President Trump in the United States of America. And President Trump knows how to negotiate, and he knows that he is governing the best country and the best economy in this world, on this planet. And every country on the planet needs to have good trade relationships with the United States. And it was a mistake for Canada to vow to implement that tax that would have hurt our tech companies here in the United States. The president made his position quite clear to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister called the president last night to let the president know that he would be dropping that tax, which is a big victory for our tech companies and our American workers here at home.
And on Harvard.
And again, Brett, Jordy, how do you deal with an administration that acts that way? How do you deal with a regime that behaves in that kind of fashion?
You can't. You can't, and that's why I think you have to do your best not to cave to somebody like that. But at the same time, like, you got to understand you're dealing with a madman, and you got to also play the game a little bit with him, right? You got to sometimes do certain things in order to just get what you want to accomplish because all these leaders, I've realized, know how to play Donald Trump perfectly as well. They know like the right things to say that are going to flatter him. They know what to say when they want to piss him off, because he does have the emotional intelligence and intelligence of a child. And so, it's very easy to push this guy's buttons and get him to do certain things. It's why Vladimir Putin has been so effective at manipulating Donald Trump. It's why all of these world leaders have been so effective at manipulating Donald Trump, because it's very obvious what's going to push him in either direction.
Let's talk about Jordy.
No, I was gonna say absolutely, but even more so than not even caving. Like for me, I've seen the leaders do the best by not, don't even give the guy, don't give him an inch, don't give him a reason to, don't like CBC, don't give him a reason to, because he's going to take full advantage of it. Ben,
let me show you this disastrous budget bill is not polling very well. I think like the lowest of any piece of legislation in history. I'll show you this. This is how this guy presents it in like an overly dramatic fashion, Harry Enton on CNN. But it's at least somewhat humorous here when he presents just how despised the disastrous budget bill, how it's negative 19 in the Washington Post, negative 20 in Pew, negative 21 Fox, negative 29 KFF. Here, just watch how the polling is on this disastrous budget bill. Let's play it.
They don't think of it as one big beautiful bill. They think of it as one big bad bill. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look at the big beautiful bill net favorable ratings. I got 5 different polls for you on the screen, and you don't have to be a mathematical genius to know that these are horrible numbers. Washington Post, minus 19 points. Pew Research Center, minus 20 points. Fox News, minus 21 points. Quinnipiac University, minus 26 points. And then KFF takes the cake at minus 29 points on the net favorable rating. Holy Toledo, you just never see numbers this poor. I have been trying to look through the history books to find if there was another piece of legislation that was on the verge of passing that was as unpopular as this one. And Boris Sanchez, I cannot find one.
And people hate this for different reasons too. I mean, you have people like Elon Musk hating it really for its attack on the future of energy and new technologies that are going to be thwarted. When I was speaking to my 10-year-old nephew, he's like, what's one of the things that are really bad about the bill? What are people talking about with energy? And why is that a bad thing? I just said, imagine when cars were being invented and it was obvious that America would be a leader in car and auto manufacturing. What if Congress said, we're going to pass a budget that attacks auto manufacturing and invests all the money in horse and buggies? Like, this is what this is basically doing, giving all of these benefits to coal, because Donald Trump likes the term coal, and attacking solar energy and wind energy and attacking climate credits, which employ millions of Americans. It's on its face horrible. So people like Musk hate it for that. I don't like it for that, but also I hate it just because it's very cruel. You're going to kick 15 million Americans off of Medicaid. It's going to get rid of supplemental nutrition assistance program, which are food stamps for millions of Americans. It's going to get rid of a lot of housing and rental assistance for Americans. It's going to give billions of dollars in tax cuts for the billionaires and screw over working class and low income Americans. And it's going to add trillions of dollars to our debt. That's one of the reasons I hate it, Brett. But there's a lot of reasons.
You could start with the basis, right? What does this bill do overall to income inequality, right? What does it do? Let's talk taxes. Let's talk how much money are people bringing home? Are we helping the most vulnerable among us? Which I think a government's role should honestly be to help the most vulnerable among us, right? To be that safety net that folks need. So let me pull up this graphic right here. This is the Senate version of the bill. It says right here, Steve Ratner, economist, says it hits poor families even harder than the initial version passed by the House. So the House's bill to the Senate did not hurt poor people enough and did not help rich people enough. Well, the Senate fixed that. They made this worse for poor people and they made us better for rich people. I know that's what everybody wants with these bills, right? And I'm saying that sarcastically, of course. Now the poorest Americans will lose 2.9% of their income while the richest gain 2.2%. So we could start there. That alone, right? I look at that and I go, that's pretty messed up. No matter your beliefs in a whole lot of things, it's pretty messed up to make people who that 2.9% could be the difference between them making their rent. The 2.9% could make the difference between them being able to feed their kids, and that the 2.2% that the richest are gaining will mean absolutely nothing to them. They'll throw it in some account. They'll have it grow over many years. It's not going to go into the economy either. It's just going to sit there. I mean, it's the most ridiculous idea on its face. And then you could go through all the things like what Ben Ben was saying, right? I'm not sure if you saw NAB2, the North American Buildings Trades Union. They slammed the bill. They wrote this whole letter about it, saying that it was the biggest job-killing bill in U.S. history. They represent like all the big manufacturing unions across the country. They said it threatens 1.75 million construction jobs and will destroy millions of manufacturing and construction jobs. I mean, it's crazy. That's right there is crazy. And also the craziest thing also, these are the jobs, most of them are actually happening in red states. These representatives, these senators who were brought on, who were voted in by these constituents in these states are now screwing the people who voted them into office while telling them that they're doing a great thing for them. Like I said, when I said the word cynical in the beginning of this episode, that's what I mean by this whole thing is cynical. You go to the clean energy provisions. Ben already talked about this. Elon Musk, obviously, selfishly, because his company benefits from the tax credits and from pushing solar and electric energy, is upset with this bill. But I'm upset with it, not because I have any stake or interest in it, but because that's bad for the future of the country. And even if you are pro-business in this country, like Ben said, why would you want to hamper what's actually a major growth industry in the United States of America? I mean, President Biden with the Inflation Reduction Act was setting the United States up to be the world leader in clean energy in these futuristic technologies. We were the leader, the innovator in that space. And now these Republicans are being like, actually, China should be the leader in this. Other countries should lead in this. That's absurd. That's absurd. And it's crazy to say we want China to take the lead in the future while we're going to invest more in coal. They're giving subsidies to coal in this bill as they strip away funding for things like solar. It's just absolutely nuts. Then you got the fiscal Republicans, they want to call themselves, the Rand Pauls, the Freedom Caucus types. They're mad because it doesn't cut enough. And so this is like the weird push-pull that Republicans are going through. You got some of the Republicans who are like, I don't know, my constituents are pretty upset that they're going to lose their health care, you think? And then you got the Rand Paul types being like, we got to cut some more of that. So it's like the whole thing is just like there's these bizarre dynamics at play here. Then you see people like Senator Tom Tillis coming out. He's saying that he's not going to vote for the bill. He did this great speech on the floor. We'll play you a bit of that shortly. But Tom Tillis then gets yelled at by Donald Trump, who does all of these childish messages like what Jordy was talking about before, saying, we got to find a primary challenger against Tom Tillis. So Tillis ultimately just decides, all right, I'm just not going to run again for the Senate. I'll be free now that I don't have to run, which is also a thing that kind of bothers me.
Totally.
You're in the United States Senate. You're one of the most powerful people in the country. You're in what is supposed to be a co-equal branch of the government that's supposed to provide a check and a balance on the other branches of government. The executive is one of those branches of government. But what ends up happening is instead, these parties become rubber stamps for the president in charge. And never has that been clearer than with Donald Trump, who is doing something that will so clearly harm these people's constituents. And they feel like unless they literally leave that co-equal branch of government that's designed to be the check on power, then they can't go against Donald Trump. Once again, absolutely insane. Like hospitals are going to close down if this thing passes, at least as is. Like this is going to be a disaster. I've been said, what did you say, 13 million could lose their healthcare. I've read up to 17 million. Some estimates could lose their healthcare. I mean, this bill is basically as bad as it gets. It truly is a reverse Robin Hood. It's the biggest bailout to the wealthy. And then they try to throw crumbs at the people and tell them that they should be happy. You won't have to pay, this very, de minimis amount of taxes. These groups that make you make $100,000. Oh, well, you'll save $1,000 a year. They'll do things like that while they give their billionaire buddies these massive, and I'm talking massive amounts of money. It is the biggest redistribution of wealth to the upper classes that I've ever seen. It is quite literally a socialism bill for the rich. And I think we have to start talking to people about it. And it's just the latest in a series of really cruel moves by this administration. Obviously, we've talked at length here about USAID. There was this report in the Washington Post over the weekend about children clinging to life, children dying one after the next because of the money that was stripped away from USAID because of the way these programs wound down. People who all they needed was basic antibiotics. They're in the middle of these war-torn zones who were promised help by USAID. That was their one lifeline. And now you see all of these people, these children, dying by at the hands of the supposed pro-life party. I mean, when you just look at everything that's going on, not even just here at home, but across the world, it is just so unimaginably cruel. It frankly, it just disgusts me on such a level to even be like associated with it and to see that our government is doing all of this.
So let's say with USAID that you believed, even though you voted for USAID programs and touted as being great, let's just say all of a sudden you said, you know what, we don't like this program anymore. If you cared about humanity, wouldn't you try to do it in a methodical way though? Even if you didn't like it, which I think USAID, it was great. I think it was part of America's soft power. It was also, I think, doing the right thing when we were the leader of the free world. I said when, because we certainly aren't right now. Let's just say you wanted to wind it down. Wouldn't you tell people, hey, in a year, 18 months, we're going to wind it down. We need other countries to step up. China, do you want to take over? Does anybody else want to take over and do this? Here's what we know. Here's the groups of people that need help. Why don't we just phase this out in a way so that we don't kill the people? But they want to kill the people. Like, you have to come to the conclusion, the way they did it kills the people. The way they're doing this disastrous budget bill kills the people. It's why I call it a murder bill.
And Ben, the irony of this, right? Let's just go back to what is Elon Musk's like number one thing that he says, right? I just love humanity so much. I just care about humanity so much. Oh, we need to populate the earth. Everybody should be having hundreds of kids. Just keep having kids, keep having kids. And then the second you have an opportunity to get power in the United States. Yeah, yes, Ben is correct. He means white kids, which is the clear distinction, which is why he doesn't care about this. But just to wake up, to get this kind of power, where you have this sort of say over government agencies, over these funding mechanisms, over these essential programs, and to decide to use that power to kill children is just like the single most fucked up thing that I could ever think of. Like, you wake up and you dream of power so that you could wield it against the most desperate people on this planet. It's so unfathomably sick to me.
And one other point I want to make here, we'll talk about it more when we come back though, is when they talk about, like, they act like there are all these like able-bodied like men out there or able-bodied people who can work, but they just love their Medicaid and they're stealing the Medicaid from other people who actually should be getting it. And that's the waste, fraud, and abuse, are all of these people who are just, they love Medicaid so much that they're willing to defraud it. What are you talking about? So what? So people love to get like back surgery so much that they want to defraud Medicaid. You know, people want to take, you know, medication for their heart or their blood pressure so much that they got to defraud Medicaid. Where the fraud and waste in Medicaid comes from is the MAGA Republicans like Rick Scott, who owned companies, healthcare companies, that would fraudulently bill the government for Medicaid and Medicare for services that were actually not being provided. And we have criminal prosecutions when that take place, the way that Rick Scott, MAGA Republican senator from Florida, that was being prosecuted. There are not a lot of human beings who are like, here's what, I'm able-bodied and I'm just going to sit at home and I'm going to take that Medicaid. That's not happening like that. And it's a ridiculous framing of part of this fictitious, dystopian, strange world that these MAGA Republicans try to act like, you know, like this exists. The same way they're like, if you go out, you may become transgender. They may transgender you. Like, what are you transgender for everybody? What they're talking about? What world are you living in? Transgender forever? Could you just stop bullying this marginalized community? They've created this bizarre, fictitious, not real world that they live in that's divorced from basic humanity. And they walk through this world with such contempt for the living, for people who are alive. And that's what you see, frankly, with the Taliban. That's what you see in like death cult governments across the world when they exist. Anyway, we'll talk about that and more. I want to take our last quick break, as Jordy mentioned, for Canada Day, store.MeidasTouch.com. We're giving some massive discount that Jordy didn't seek approval of from the brothers that I'm not even sure if it's going to make us lose money on it. But get your 15% off at store.MeidasTouch.com when you add a Made in Canada gear to your cart. That was Jordy freelancing, but I'm glad we're doing it. Also, if you want to gift memberships on our YouTube, that helps grow this independent media platform. When we come back, I want to talk about Netanyahu's trip to the United States after his criminal case was postponed after Donald Trump extorted Israel, saying we weren't going to give them weapons. Donald Trump cutting a deal with the leader of Syria after the new leader of Syria said that he would build a Trump hotel in Damascus. Trump's removing sanctions against Syria. We'll talk a little bit about Iran. And then I want to talk a little bit more about this budget bill also. Let's take our final break of the show.
You ever stand in your kitchen staring at those old pans thinking, why do I still own this thing? That was me until I got Hexclad. I used to struggle choosing between stainless steel for performance and nonstick for cleanup. I felt like every pan I had needed an instruction manual. Hexclad completely changed the game. These pans are the best I've ever used. I seared a steak last week that looked like something out of a restaurant and then made eggs in the same pan the next morning. Nothing stuck. Wipe clean in just seconds. They're oven safe up to 500 degrees, dishwasher safe, metal utensil safe. You can feel the quality the second you hold one. I've even got their knives now, 67 layers of Japanese Damascus steel. These things are incredible and slice effortlessly. Hexclad totally revamped my kitchen. If it's good enough for Gordon Ramsay, who uses Hexclad in his restaurants and home, it's good enough for me. Oh, and did I mention Hexclad products come with a lifetime warranty? They literally last a lifetime. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off your order with our exclusive link. Just head to hexclad.com/Meidas, support our show, and check them out at hexclad.com/Meidas. Make sure to let them know we sent you. Bon appetit. Let's eat with Hexclad's revolutionary cookware. As the weather warms up, I've been rethinking my skincare routine, especially because I used to rely on retinol, but retinol can make your skin more sensitive to the sun, which is not ideal for summer. That's why I've switched to OneSkin's OS1 Face, and I'm seriously impressed. OS1 Face boosts collagen production like retinol without the sun sensitivity, and unlike retinol, which could actually disrupt your skin barrier, OS1 strengthens it, helping your skin become more resilient to the heat, sun, and pollution. Here's what makes it different. OneSkin's patented OS1 peptide is the first ingredient scientifically proven to reverse your skin's biological age by reducing senescent cells, the root cause of skin aging. Instead of irritating your skin, it helps it look, feel, and act younger. Personally, I've been using it on my face, and what I love most is how smooth and healthy my skin feels. It's become a staple in my routine, absolutely essential. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. For a limited time, you could try OneSkin with 15% off using code Meidas at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code Meidas, M-E-I-D-A-S. And after you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Give your skin the scientifically proven gentle care it deserves with OneSkin.
Let's go. Shout out to our sponsors. Links in the description of both YouTube and the audio. Use the links, use the codes. If there's an exit survey, let them know we sent you. Benji, where to next?
Did you guys see I made it like 45 minutes on the chair?
No. See, I can't tell when you're on the chair or when you're off. That's how good you are, dude.
I did 45 minutes on the chair, a major improvement in my back. But then I got off it after 45 minutes, and it was an excruciating pain.
Yeah, let me tell you this. I don't know if you know this or if I'm breaking this live on air, but while we record, I see you at all times, even when you're not on the screen, and I see you during the breaks, and you look like you were in some of the worst pain that I ever saw. And I felt your pain through the screen, and I felt so bad watching you during the break because you were, Ben was suffering. Like, Ben will never tell you guys how much pain he's in on a daily basis. You can't see him. I can see him.
Yeah.
I have the admin access. And Ben is not looking
was
so
rough
good.
one,
But
yeah. That was a rough
but you're able to turn it on when we're live, so that's good.
That's all that matters.
scrambling for the pillows. But look, as I reflect and look, I'm lucky and blessed to have, healthcare, and I just think about people who are on Medicaid and people who are going to get kicked off, who don't have the ability to get their issues dealt with, who are probably far more serious than even by far like what I'm going through. And then they have to be called like lazy by MAGA Republicans. Oh, you're able-bodied, you should be working. Well, not all companies also provide healthcare as well. And what you're doing as well is going to shut down like a massive percentage of rural hospitals. 1 in 4 nursing homes are going to be shut down. It's like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? And why? And the why is because the MAGA Republicans want the billionaires to get that money so that they could try to come up with some offset for their massive tax cuts, but it's not nearly close to what those tax cuts are going to do for the billionaires. And all you have to do is tax these billionaires first fairly, and then a little bit more. Just tax the billionaires a little bit more. They'll still be billionaires. They'll still be 100 millionaires, more money than anybody needs in multiple lifetimes. And we can deal with a lot of these problems, and it'll reduce a lot of the angst and societal issues that we have to deal with today. Look, let me just show you these 2 clips. First, Tom Tillis, MAGA Republican senator from North Carolina, who Brett referenced. He voted no against the disastrous budget bill. And then Donald Trump told him, don't run for re-election. He's like, all right, I'm not going to run for re-election. If you're going to primary me, why would I have to deal with this crap? Then he took to the floor. By the way, he did like a Beyonce wardrobe change too. He like did one look, then he came back with a suit. But anyway, here's when he came out the first time. And he's like, I just can't look what he said, like 670,000 people in my district in the face and tell them we promised that we would protect your Medicaid and we're kicking you off. I can't do that, he said. And for that, he's now basically been pushed out of the Republican Party. Here, play this clip.
That between the state-directed payments and the cuts scheduled in this bill, there's a reduction of state-directed payments. And then there's the reduction of the provider tax. They can't find a hole in my estimate. So what they told me is that, yeah, it's rough, but North Carolina's used the system. They're going to have to make it work. All right. So what do I tell 663,000 people in 2 years or 3 years when President Trump breaks his promise by pushing them off of Medicaid because the funding's not there anymore, guys? When the White House managers advising the president are not telling him that the effect of this bill is to break a promise. And the last time I saw a promise broken around health care, with respect to my friends on the other side of the aisle, it's when somebody said, if you like your health care, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. We found out that wasn't true. That made me the second Republican Speaker of the House since the Civil War, ladies and gentlemen, because we betrayed the promise to the American people. 2 years later, 3 years later, it actually made me a U.S. Senator, because in 2010, it had just been proposed. And just anticipation of what was going to happen was enough to have a sea change election that swept Republicans into the majority for the second time in 100 years. Now, Republicans are...
Look, you can still see he's MAGA there, because the reality is that before Obamacare, there were no doctors at all, period, full stop, who would care for people with pre-existing conditions. You would just die. Do I agree that you should be able to pick your provider? Absolutely. But who are the people who were blocking Obamacare every step of the way? Hint, hint. It wasn't the person named Obama. Okay.
It drives me nuts here too. This is what they always do. And I get it, right? He has to play this performative dance, right? Even though he's, leaving the Senate now. But did you hear the line when he said something to the effect of, and I don't know if your advisors didn't tell, his advisors didn't tell him that this is going to piss off the same people and affect the people who voted for him. It's not his advisors, okay? Like all the Trump people always do this. Like it's never Trump's fault that Trump strips healthcare away from people. It's never Trump's fault that he does anything. It's always, oh, it must have been an aide or an advisor who must not have told him the full scope of this thing. Somebody on his team must have messed up, given him incorrect information. If only he knew the truth. If only he knew the truth about what was going on here. So, okay, so the guy, so your theory of the case is that he just doesn't listen and he's a complete idiot and he's supposed to, I mean, I'm not going to totally disagree with you with all that, but give the guy some agency, okay? Give the guy some agency. Donald Trump knows exactly what he's doing. Trump knows exactly what this bill does. This is not the fault of his aides or his advisors or anybody around Trump. This is being pushed by Trump. And if he said tomorrow that we needed to get rid of, or to right now, if we needed to get rid of these cuts to Medicaid, then they would be gone because that's how this party works. And the only person who's pushing back on this bill right now, other than like a Tom Tillis and a Rand Paul, is Elon Musk, which is now putting these people in a awkward situation because Elon Musk is now literally threatening to make a new party. Elon Musk says if this bill passes, the next day he will create the America Party because the Republicans and the Democrats are a uniparty that just all work together to screw the American people. So he's going to create the America Party. Okay. I welcome this creation of this party. Go on, take your billionaire friends. You guys create a new party. You divide the Republican Party. I'm okay with that. I'll read you Elon's just his exact wording here. If this insane spending bill passes, the America Party will be formed the next day. Our country needs an alternative to the Democrat Republican uniparty so that the people actually have a voice. But when it comes to issues like this, especially, there is no uniparty. There are two parties with incredibly different visions for the country. There's a party that is trying to take away people's healthcare, and there is a party trying to have people keep their healthcare and expand healthcare access. So let's stop pretending like these parties are the same, especially when it comes to issues like this.
It's such an interesting reflex from Tillis, like such a MAGA reflex. It's like, okay, I've decided I'm not running for re-election because Donald Trump is now mean tweeting me. So I'm not going to run anymore, but I'm still on my way out, going to take a shot at Obama and take a shot at an aide of Trump, right, so I don't offend him even more. I mean, that's how red-pilled mind so many of these politicians are. That even when, you know, the bill's an allegiance test as much as it is just a bill that they want to pass to inflict damage on the American people. It's who's going to step up and speak out against the bill in favor of their constituents, trying to defend their own constituents, or who's just going to bend the knee completely to dear leader Donald Trump on this and not give a rat's ass the implications that this bill has on the constituents at all, right? To a certain point, I want to give Tillis credit because he's actually at least putting his flag in the sand saying, no, I cannot, in the good of hearts, I cannot look my 640,000, cannot look them in the eye and say, this is okay for you, when in 2 years, Donald Trump's just going to take it. Can't do it. But then at the same time, on his way out, what does this goofball do? Takes a shot at Obama and then doesn't want to offend dear leader too much. It takes a shot at one of his aides because no, Trump can't. Trump is at all times responsible for all the quote unquote good that happens to the country and good that happens to the Republican Party. But then when anything potentially is off-putting towards it, that's an aide. That's an advisor. Must be some specialist, someone that knows something. It's comical at times.
He's actually was praising Obamacare, and his complaint was that the full promise of Obamacare was not fully realized immediately. Immediately, it wasn't fully realized when people like him were opposing Obamacare and trying to get it overruled. And under what this disastrous budget bill is going to do, it will likely lead to the same amount of people who were uninsured as before Obamacare. So yet another thing that Donald Trump's destroying. So just the current status of this, the Republican bill has to look identical to the Senate bill, has to look identical to the House bill. And from what we're hearing, those MAGA Republicans in the House who consider themselves moderate, I don't think they're moderate at all, but they say they're going to need to bring substantial changes to the Senate bill. The Senate is going to want to get this thing approved either in the dead of night or immediately. We still don't fully know where that's going to net out as of this recording. But as you look forward with it as well, the House is going to have an identical version of it. And so the question is does this thing get passed before July 4th, the arbitrary deadline that the Trump regime has set to get this thing passed. And if it doesn't pass on July 4th, then what happens to it? And the longer this drags on, the more likelihood there could be to derail some of the worst provisions, which is a win for the people. If there's a way to stop the attacks on Medicaid, if there's a way to stop the attacks on essential services that Americans need. While that's going on too, a few other things I think it's important that we point out. As I mentioned at the top of the show, some of the new intelligence coming out of our intelligence services, European intelligence services in Iran, as we previously talked about, that these facilities were not fully destroyed. Now we're seeing, as reported by Jennifer Griffin of Fox and Max-R satellite images, excavation taking place near the ventilation shafts at the Fordow facility, meaning it looks like Iran's rebuilding there. This, as Donald Trump says, that he's not going to take any further action. He's not putting maximum pressure on Iran. He says, he's not threatening additional sanctions. He goes, it was an 11-day war. It's over. China, go do your trading with Iran. Good luck, everybody. We're out. Obliterated. That was his word, obliterated. So strengthening Iran, they get to keep nuclear weapons, get richer. They continue to sell their Shahed drones to Russia. Russia uses those drones against Ukraine. America's distracted, not focusing on the fact that Russia just took over one of the areas that have the largest lithium deposits in Ukraine. Russia launched an offensive against one of those areas. So remember Donald Trump's big mineral deal that he was talking about, where we were supposed to protect Ukraine's minerals because Donald Trump was going to use those rare earth minerals. Well, now most of those rare earth minerals are in the possession of Russia because the United States did not sanction Russia and the United States did not keep its part of the bargain right there. So that's certainly not a good development there. In the meantime, you have Benjamin Netanyahu is visiting Donald Trump this week after Donald Trump extorted Israel and said, you need to pause the criminal prosecutions against Netanyahu or else America won't give Israel any more weapons. The court then postponed Netanyahu's criminal proceedings. And I think Americans are looking at this like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what the hell? Like, what is this? Like, you're to help Americans. Help Americans who need affordable housing. Help Americans who want things cheaper. And stop saying, oh, gas is $1.98. Gas is not $1.98. Brett, as you mentioned, core inflation was up 2.7%. When we go out and about, we know prices are high. We know they're going up because we see it. We feel it. Americans know what's going down. You can't lie to us and just say we shouldn't believe what we're actually seeing out there. While you're, building Trump hotels and having the new head of Syria and Netanyahu over at the White House, it's absolutely ridiculous. They're destroying, by the way, the Rose Garden for just no reason at all, other than they want to build like a patio and turn the Rose Garden into a patio. It just, to me, is just a reflection of everything Donald Trump touches dies right there. And then, I think it's worth mentioning this other story right here before we go, which is Alligator Alcatraz, they're calling it. They're building this in the Everglades in Florida, where they're going to be putting at least 5,000 migrants, maybe more. And Trump and DeSantis are bragging about it. It's this old airstrip that's in the middle of swampland where there were alligators. So they're like, if you go out there and you try to escape, alligators will eat you and kill you. It's Alligator Alcatraz, everybody. By the way, this facility is going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars to build. That's where our government's priorities are. As the Trump regime revokes temporary protected status most recently from the Haitians in the United States, he followed up after revoking TPS from Cubans, Venezuelans, and now there's an effort to denaturalize people who are American citizens as well. And that's one of the things Miller's pushing. We're now just bragging about, not we, but the MAGA Republicans, about concentration camps like Alligator Alcatraz. It's, like literal concentration camps going up in the United States. And also a horrible story of an individual from Cuba who died under ICE authority, someone who had lived in the United States for over 60 years of his 75 years alive, believed to have had a heart attack in ICE custody. And, you basically had Tom Homan saying, whatever, people die, and that's just what happens to you. You show up, you die. It is what it is. Brett, do we have that clip of Homan by any chance, where Homan gives the press conference and he's like, people die? I'm not sure if we have it. If we do, let's just play it.
Question for you. There are reports of a 75-year-old Cuban national who died in ICE custody. He had lived in the United States for 60 years. He was being held in ICE detention in Florida. Is there anything you can tell us about that? There's still not a lot of information, how he died.
I'm unaware of that. I'm not aware of that. Okay. I mean, people die in ICE custody. People die in county jails. People die in state prisons. I mean, if you look at, when I was ICE director and we drilled down that, the question should be how many lives does ICE save? Because when they go into detention, we find many with diseases and stuff that we deal with right away to prevent that. So I'm not aware of that specific case, but I'll say this. People can argue with me all they want, but the facts are the facts. I think that politicians in New Jersey found this out, that we have the highest detention standards in the industry. I'll compare an ICE detention facility against any state prison, against any federal facility. I'll go head to head with any of them. You go to ice.gov and look at our detention standards. It's the highest detention standards in the industry at a very expensive cost to the taxpayers. So, people say, oh.
By the way, most of them are enriching private prison companies. They're not, shocker, not what he says. We've heard appalling stories of kids who have been detained, who are like sleeping in their own feces, just horrible conditions. And not shocking that they lie about everything, and that they're inspired by Bukele's CCOT terrorism center. And we now just have literal concentration camps called Alligator Alcatraz in the United States. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. I think that's why Americans are pissed off right now at this budget bill, pissed off at Donald Trump, pissed off at the MAGA Republicans, and frankly, a media or corporate news that tries to normalize all of this stuff. So we're never going to normalize it here on the MeidasTouch Network. That's why a reminder, if you can become a member of our YouTube channel, please consider becoming a member right now. You can gift as many memberships as you want to people who may not be able to get memberships themselves. If you gift it, YouTube delegates the memberships out to people. So you don't even have to worry about it once you purchase the memberships for people. Go to store.MeidasTouch.com. Take advantage of the deal that Jordy put up there without consulting Brett or me for Canada Day. 15% off at store.MeidasTouch.com when you add the Canada gear, made in Canada gear to your cart. Brett, anything you want to say before we go?
No, that's it. Just look at what they're doing. Look at what this government is doing. It tells you everything you need to know. Look at their priorities. Look at what they're spending money on. Look at what they're not spending money on. I think it's very clear. And we don't know what's going to happen overnight tonight, and so we don't know. Does this thing pass the Senate tonight? Does it? Is it kicked down the road further? How is it going to work in committee when they get together with the House? Those are all unknowns. But let's keep pushing. Let's getting the truth out there. And I want to thank everybody who has subscribed. Listen to the MeidasTouch podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, shared all this information with a friend. The best thing we could do right now is just to continue to get the information out. So thank you. Jordy, take it away.
Shout out to the Midas Mighty.
The Midas Mighty standing strong against the fascists. We sing our song. We will get it right whenever.
Can't get enough Midas? Check out the Midas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.